Hey crafters, what is up? Random Ranger here. One of the most popular questions that I get as a foamsmith is, what foam do I need, where can I buy it, and how much foam do I need? If these questions are questions you find yourself asking, continue watching because we're going to answer them now. Now before we get started, I'd like to add a little disclaimer to the beginning of this video. I haven't personally used all the types of foam we're about to talk about, but what I have done is I've reached out to a number of other cosplayers and crafters about their experiences using different types of foam, especially those who've used multiple types of foam. So take what I say with a little bit of grain of salt, but I've done my best to try to consolidate my research into rules of thumb that can help you make an informed purchasing decision. And without further ado, let's jump in. So what kind of foam do you need? Well, there's two main types of options available. We've got floor tiles available and foam rolls available. Floor tiles are going to be your cheapest option, typically around 56 cents USD per square foot. And foam rolls are going to be your more expensive option, around $1 to $2.50 per square foot. Now, as the floor tiles are the cheapest option, they're going to have with a couple downsides. These are namely, they're more prone to having holes on them. So the surface is pock full of divots and such and imperfections. It's going to take more work to get out, just covering it with quick seal or something. One of these sides of the floor tile is textured. So this side is textured, and unless you're looking for that type of look, you're gonna have to pay attention to which side you're using so you don't accidentally texture your prop if you don't want to. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just kind of annoying to try to keep track of that. This foam is also relatively low density, so it's gonna be a lot more flexible and floppy than a foam roll. And it only comes in one thickness, which is typically around 6 millimeters. 6 millimeters is useful for a lot of things, but it's gonna be hard to make really small details with it because it's hard to go smaller. You can always stack up more foam, but it's hard to go down. Foam rolls, on the other hand, come in medium to high density variants, and you can also get it in a number of thicknesses. So right here we have some 10 millimeter foam, we have some 4 millimeter foam, and this is 2 millimeter foam. You can also get foam in a number of other sizes, but this is what I have on hand. With the medium density and the high density foams, the foam gets firmer and more wood-like, and this makes it easier to do things like get clean cuts, and it also makes it more sandable. It also has a tendency to hold its shape better. Generally speaking though, you can still do anything with the floor tiles that you can do with the foam rolls. It's just going to take more work, and you may have extra seams. So floor tiles are limited to this 2-foot radius, or 2 foot by 2 foot square, whereas foam rolls can come usually around 2 foot by 5 foot, allowing you plenty of room to cut out an entire template of a gun in one go. Whereas with the floor tiles, you're probably going to have to glue 2 of these together in order to get the full length. So which foam should you choose? Well, I think that really depends on your budget. If you're on a tight budget where your main limiting factor is cost, definitely go with the floor tiles. You can get top tier props and costumes using this. It's just going to take more hands-on work. You're going to have to spend more time sanding it down to perfection. You're going to have to put more work into sealing and removing blemishes, which if you're interested in how to remove blemishes and holes, you can check out my video on quick sealing. But whereas the foam rolls, you don't have to worry as much with that. I've gone through personally now about 200 square feet of the foam rolls. That's like $400 worth of foam. And I've only found enough holes to count on one hand from my supplier. So it really depends on whether you're looking to prioritize saving money or saving time. Real quick, I also just wanted to show you can get top tier products using either floor tiles or foam rolls. It just depends on how much work you put in. This Master Chief cosplay is done by a good friend of mine, Master Colt117. Feel free to check him out on Instagram. But he used all floor tiles for this build, and as you can see, it turned out amazing. So like I said, it really is just up to you about whether you want to save time or money. So where can you buy foam? This was honestly one of the harder questions for me to find a good answer to when I was getting into the hobby, so I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible. Floor tiles can be bought almost anywhere. They're most commonly bought at Harbor Freight, but you can also find them at places like Walmart, Amazon, and Home Depot. Foam rolls, on the other hand, are a little trickier to get a hold of. It's harder to find them in stores, but there's a number of online retailers that specialize in selling foam, and many of them specialize in selling it for cosplayers. So the two most popular brands that I'm aware of are SKS Props and TNT Cosplay Supply. From what I've been able to gather from a number of people who've used both products is that their quality is relatively comparable and the prices don't diverge too much. So you can, depending on where you're local to, if you're interested in buying local, I believe TNT is based in Texas and SKS is based in the Midwest, I believe Michigan. So if that's a factor for you, there's that. There's also a number of other online retailers for other foam, like there's Foam Factory. Their website isn't targeted towards cosplayers, so I found it a little harder to use. And of the people I know who've used their foam, they said they don't really plan on going back to it again. So there's something to consider. You can also buy foam in stores like Joann's as the Yaya Han brand. The foam's okay, but you're gonna want to pay attention to the price. The Yaya Han stuff can go up to $3.75 per square foot, I believe, making it the most expensive foam that I've seen. So if you're interested in seeing the full chart of all the different foam options, here you go. Yeah, so fortunately, the Yaya Han foam is almost always on sale, so it shouldn't be too hard to find it cheaper, but that's just something to be aware of. There's also another brand called What the Foam. I'm not too familiar with their products, so I can't really attest too much to their quality, but their prices are more similar to that of the floor tiles. I think they're around 67 cents per square foot. So if that interests you, go ahead and check them out. And if you do purchase some of their foam, let me know. I would love to hear your feedback on their products. I've been collecting this information slowly over the last 2 years. So if your favorite foam brand isn't represented, please let me know. I'd love to know what other brands are out there. And I can be sure to include this into my data and maybe do an updated video at some point in the future. So how much foam do you need to buy? Well, this was another really tricky question for me to find an answer to, and no one really wanted to give me a number. And it kind of makes sense because it's obviously going to vary on what you're building. If you're building a gun, you're not going to need as much foam as building a full suit of power armor. However, that still doesn't help me make a purchasing decision. So I've found that there's two main factors in how much foam a build is going to need. The first factor is, well, how big is your project? Naturally, if you're building a giant suit of armor, it's going to use less than a prop, but that's no surprise. The second factor is how angular or how many details are on the armor. So if a piece of costume has a lot of smooth curves, I've found that it's going to use up less foam than compared to a costume that's a lot of angular details. My recent Halo Reach build used up about 80 square feet of foam. The Reach has a lot of angular details, and it's a full bodysuit or full armor coverage. My buddy Heathbar built this ODST build, and it used about 55 square feet. It covers about the same amount of your body, but on the ODST there is a number of more smooth edges, namely around the torso. So I believe that's where a lot of the foam savings comes from. It costs, what's that, 25 fewer square feet? That's about how much you would need for something like that. And then this Marine build by my friends at the Wardrobe Armory cost about 30 square feet of foam. A lot of that comes from the fact that it's a much smaller costume, but you're still going to need about 30 square feet for something like that. These numbers aren't going to translate directly into your projects. That's natural. But I hope it gives you a sense of how much foam you're going to need to order for your project. If I were to build another costume, another Spartan suit, for example, I would probably order 10 sheets of 2x5, so 100 square feet. I also just want to leave a shout out thank you to my buddies Heath Bar and Wardrobe Armory for letting me use their costumes as an example in this video. I'll provide links to their profiles in the description, so if you think their costumes are cool, go ahead and check them out. They've got a lot of great work and they would love to see some traffic. What foam thickness do I need? If you go to a cosplay website, say TNT, you're going to find that there's a lot of different thicknesses. And when I first went to one of these websites, I was overwhelmed. I had no idea what foam to order. So I'm going to break them down into 3 categories for you: detail, construction, and block. Detail foam is the really thin stuff like this 4 and 2 millimeter. And this is great for creating small details and building up levels of, well, detail on your props. You're not going to be needing necessarily too much of it, as it's used a lot for the smaller stuff. I usually keep 1 or 2 rolls on hand, and I found that that's enough to get through multiple projects. Detail foam also tends to be in the 2 to 6 millimeter mark. Once you start hitting 6 millimeter, you can start getting into construction foam, but it's on the thinner end, because you can construct stuff with the floor tiles, which is 6 millimeter, but you can also do some sort of details with it. Construction foam, the next category, is in the range of about 6 millimeters to about 12 millimeters. This is going to be your most common foam type. It's great for getting the base foundation for your costumes and props done. I recently made a DMR that was done with 4 layers of 10 millimeter foam. My whole reach build was made with 10 millimeter foam, and it's a great medium for building things up, as opposed to the block, which would be anything greater than 12 millimeters, which can go as large as a few inches in thickness. And that's great for getting big, ridiculously large chunks of foam down, and you can also use it for sculpting shapes into and such. Personally, I've found that you don't necessarily need to have any block foam. You can kind of just take your construction foam, glue a couple layers together, and it works pretty well. Construction foam, that's going to be your main source of foam. You're going to want a bunch of that on hand for anything you're building, somewhere between the 6 and 12 millimeter mark. Like I said, I use 10 millimeter. I use that because it makes mental math easy. If I want to do, say, detail intrusion halfway through my foam, I know that's going to be 5 millimeters. Or I want to go a quarter of the way through, that's going to be 2.5 millimeters. If I want to add detail on top of that, say I want something to be half the thickness on top of what my foam already is, I'm going to have to add 5 millimeters on top of that. Or I can stack on a 4 millimeter and a 2 millimeter and get that pretty close. So that's why I do that. All right, guys, thank you for watching. That's all I've got for you today. If there's a particular video you'd like to see me do in the future, be sure to leave a comment down below. If you would like to follow my new series on finishing props, we just uploaded the first one on how to quick seal your foam to remove blemishes. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.